This video has been brought to you by the Landscape Certified Contractors Association. Due to the membership support, we're able to bring content to each and every one of you. If you have a topic or a product you'd like us to review, or if you want to become a member, visit www.irrigatortech.com and hope to hear from you soon. Enjoy the video. Hello everybody, this is Brandon Burgess with Irrigator Technical Training School. And today we're going to go over basic programming on a Rainmaster Eagle. So this is my Rainmaster Eagle. So let's go ahead and break into this. Controller is already set. We have the correct time and date. So let's go ahead and restart it so we can start right in the beginning. So the way to do this reset is to hit ET and setup at the same time and hold it. Can't believe I did that the first try. So now it goes to a screen where it says hello. So now my controller is completely reset. So that's actually a pretty important function here, because as you see, as I cycle through the setup, there's actually a code access that we can stick on here to where you have a 4-digit code. So in case you're trying to get in, you would have to hit ET and setup. You actually have to restart the whole entire controller. So in case you guys are ever stuck and the programs aren't right and you don't know what's wrong with the controller, hit ET setup, clears everything, just go back and reprogram that. So we're going to go ahead and set up. So we're going to set the time, so it is 10:55 a.m. Hit enter. Set the date. Today is 4/04/15. Enter. Now it's going to say master valve 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is what program do I have a master valve on, and what programs do I want the controller to acknowledge a master valve. So to take them off, you just hit that number. Again, to put them back, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now every time we hit OK, we save. So we're going to hit ET, or sorry. So every time we hit So every time we hit enter, it's going to save, and then I'm going to hit setup to advance. It's asking me what type. Normally closed, I hit 1 to toggle, or normally open. So that's asking what type of master valve. Do I have a controller that needs to know I have a master valve that's closed all the time, which will require power sent to that for the duration of the clock cycle? Or do I have it normally open? It's open all the time. We're going to stick with normally open. So I'm going to hit enter. So it said OK, and then I hit setup. Now it's asking me pump. So this is going to be the same thing. If I have a booster pump or anything equivalent to that, what program do I want? So you might think to yourself, well, if I have a pump, then I would want it on all the time. But that's not necessarily true. I know here in California, we like to use a lot of drip irrigation, especially now because we're in a drought. So we would not want an irrigation pump, a booster pump, on when I have drip irrigation. That's just more stress on the system. So I'm going to go ahead and leave all the programs off because I do not have one. I hit OK, and then I hit setup to go. So now I have stack or no stack. So this is a feature I like personally that Rainmaster put in. So a stack means if for some reason one of my programs is running a little long, let's say we're using the ET function on here, and we want to, it's got to elongate so let's say we're running on an ET-based scheduling system, and because of it being unseasonably warm, my run times on my program it runs a lot longer, so I get overlap in my 2 program start times. Now, with the stack function here, so it says stack, that will push back my second program till my first one has completed its full duration. So if you say I don't care, I want no stack, meaning if they overlap, it'll run 2 programs at once until the initial one's duration has completed. So we're going to leave it on stack because I said before I like that. So I hit setup. Delay. So this is going to be delay between valves. So it's a good idea. This is going to be in seconds. I put 3 seconds. That's just a preference I have. So that means when I send power to my valve, when it's time to switch from valve 1 to 2, my controller is going to take a 3-second break. So that just gives the valve a chance to kind of slow down and close efficiently without having the hydraulic demands of turning another valve on. So again, I hit enter, it says okay, and then I hit setup. So now I get, this is code. So what this is a 4-digit code I can enter, which can lock out anybody from making any changes at the controller. So that's pretty handy if you have people with idle hands that want to get in there and change things, you know, if it's, whether it be a property owner or someone in the field. So you can still run manually without code access, but you cannot change any programs. So I like that, but I'm just going to go ahead and enter, this is for training purposes, and I hit setup to advance. Now sensors, this is going to be the same thing. What programs do I want sensors, whether it be rain, solar, wind, you know, whatever we have out there in the field. Mostly rain. Rain is the #1 sensor. Pretty much every controller at least has the option to have, not necessarily that we have them. So I'm going to say #1, I'm going to hit enter. Okay, say that. Alarm. So the alarm means if there is any kind of faults, whether it be electrical, hydraulic, because I'm going to set up a flow sensor on here, it's going to give me a beep, just as you can hear when we advance on our controller. It beeps at us. So I think it's every 2 minutes, it'll give an audible beep to let someone know that there's an issue going on. So I'm going to leave that on. Okay. So what we have here is soak. So this is the cycle and soak feature on this controller. So this is very, very important when it comes to water conservation and efficient watering in general. Cycle and soak function is, we have a certain amount of moisture our soil can take all at once. So our soil is just like a sponge. I always like to think of it that way. A dry sponge, we pour water, it's going to swell up just like our soil does. It swells up till a certain point it cannot hang on to any more moisture. It starts to run off. So what the cycle and soak feature allows us to do is break up our time and let a soaking period happen, and then before we cycle again. So I'm going to put program 1 because we're going to do program 1 and set. The next feature we have here is odd or even. So before I thought, that's kind of a weird deal, odd or even days. So this is days on the calendar, you know, odds and even days. But now, here in California especially, we have a lot of water restrictions. And they tell us we can only water on certain days of the week, or they say on odd or even days, depending on what side of the street you live on. So this becomes more handy, but I'm going to go ahead and leave it off. Communications off. So this is if I have a weather station hooked up on the property, or if I have some kind of device that reads ET. So we're going to leave that off, hit enter, hit setup. Now it's asking me flow. Do I have a flow sensor? As I talked about before, we're going to go ahead and say yes. So I'm going to hit enter. Now it's going to start asking me kind of some questions about my flow sensor. So what size is the pipe? So 1.5 is 1.5 inches. You can hit 1 to toggle. We got 2 inch, 3 inch, 4 inch, 1 inch, 1.5 inches. I'm going to go ahead and say 2 inch. Hit enter to save. And go ahead and set up to advance. So now it's going to ask me main, and it says main 500. So that's 500 gallons per minute. So what this is like my benchmark. So it's saying, hey, if I'm over 500 gallons per minute, which mind you is a lot. I'm saying that I have a 2-inch pipe. A 2-inch pipe, well, depending obviously on our inlet pressure, but we could probably pump 250 gallons out of that. So not even half if we have a mainline break completely. So we want to lower that way down. So how did you figure that out? Well, you can do a simple test in the field. You can go to your zone. You can turn on a station, record your water meter prior to that, run it for, I usually do 3 to 5 minutes depending. So we kind of get a good average. Stop the valve, get another meter reading, find out your total gallons per minute, divide it by the number of minutes ran, and then you can get your gallons per minute per zone. So I would just always take, in this case, you don't have to go to every single valve, just go to the one that has the most heads or the biggest equipment on there. So a good starting point is about 125. Again, this depends on what kind of systems you're running. If you're running multiple valves at once, if you're using big rotor systems. But I always start at 125, so you can always adjust this. So anything above 125, it'll shut down. So this is in case you have a valve that's stuck on, it's running 2 valves at once, or you have a broken lateral, broken main, it'll shut off. So that's the purpose of our flow sensor here. Unscheduled flow. So unscheduled flow is basically just that. When the timer's saying, hey, I'm not on, I'm not supposed to be on, but we have flow going through our piping system. Now this is set at 200 gallons per minute. Again, that's very, very high. So in case you have someone that uses quick couplers, and gets access to the water during the day when we're not irrigating, you might want to set it. So 3/4 inch quick coupler, if we put 35 gallons per minute, we're well below that. So we're good. So now we got delay. So this is flow check delay. This is how many minutes I want to wait before I start getting the reading from my flow sensor. So you might ask yourself, why would we want to do that? Well, as this valve turns on, there's no resistance in the pipe yet, in the lateral line. So as it fills up, the water is going to be going a lot faster. The higher the velocity means the higher the flow going through it. So as I'll show you, the controller will actually learn the flow. And as it learns the flow, it'll record that. So when you turn a valve on, it might be a higher flow. It might shut down your controller. So it's good to leave at least a 2 minute. So I'm going to hit OK. Total gallons. So if I had a flow sensor hooked to this and I could go through, I could see how many gallons I've used, and it's always, you can always hit clear here on the side to reset it. But basically, you can do every month come and see how many gallons you've used without having to read the meter and do all that. So this is percentage. So at what percentage above my normal flow do I want per station to tolerate before I shut down? So 20%, that's pretty good. That's a pretty good indicator. So you can lower that down. You can get better security if you just break one nozzle off or one head's broken. But that's something you can play with. So this is how you can kind of dial it in. Some people will dial it in too low, not really paying attention to what they're doing. And by doing so, actually start getting a lot of incompleted watering scheduling and a lot of alerts, and just need to take a little bit of care and go through this again. So that's why we're making these videos. So 20% is good. Right, so now it says limits, and I hit enter and it says 0 gallons per minute, but what it's doing is it's going to cycle through all my stations, and this is where it's learning the flow. So if I go ahead and hit enter again, you'll see the light moves over to number 2. I'm just going to move over again. So what I'm doing is I'm cycling through, and I'm doing that. So I hit setup. So that's it for the setup. So make sure you go ahead and check for more videos. I'm going to do ET setup, and I'm going to go over how to set up a program. All right, so thank you. Hope you enjoyed. Again, this is Brandon Burgess with Irrigator Technical Training School.